Here's a $1 million question. Should you be worried about a market crash if you just bought a house or if you're looking to buy a house here in the 2021 time period? Now, home prices have reached an all-time high, and people are fearing that this is going to be a 2009 market crash all over again, and we're just at the top of a housing bubble. I mean, we all know the issue, right? There is more demand than there is supply. You have a ton of pre-approved buyers taking advantage of the historic low interest rates here, and a lot of sellers, we're just not seeing as many sellers put their home on the market because of a lot of uncertainty, and also because they don't want to pay these astronomical prices when they go to buy a house after their house sells. But here's the thing, right? We all know that this level of appreciation is just not sustainable, and as a result, a lot of people are speculating that we're headed our way to a market crash, or what's better known as maybe even a correction. What's up everyone, Alex Colasar here with Century 21, and I want to talk about something that's probably no secret to a lot of you, and again, that's that the housing market here in the US and also right here in our local market of Cleveland, the housing market is absolutely on fire. Nationally, you got home prices appreciating on average around 11% over last year, when the average rate of appreciation is really only around 2 to maybe 4%. And right here in Cleveland, we saw an appreciation of around 24%. And in Cuyahoga County as a whole, we saw home prices appreciate as much as 11% in the last year. And like I said before, we all know this level of appreciation is not just sustainable. So what can we see moving forward? Now, I got 3 things that I want to cover today that are going to basically show indications on why or even how a market crash could happen right here in the US, but also more importantly, right here in the Cleveland market. The first thing we're gonna talk about is rising interest rates. It's no surprise that home prices have appreciated so much when there have been historic low interest rates for buyers to take advantage of. And that's because interest rates and home prices are directly correlated between one another. Now, I want to talk about an example that I think is pretty cool and it kind of shows the direct correlation of prices. Let's assume that you're gonna buy a house out here in Lakewood, Ohio, a suburb on the west side of Cleveland, right? You want to keep your max monthly budget right around $1,750. And if you got a pre-approval at 4.9% interest rate, you're looking at buying around a $250,000 house. Now let's assume with the same monthly budget of $1,750, you get a pre-approval with a 2.6% interest rate. Instead of that buying a $250,000 house, you can now afford a $293,000 house, right? That's a $43,000 increase or a 16% increase on how far your budget can actually go. But here's the kicker, right? Since 2019 and 2021, I ran the average sales price for both years and compared them directly. And since 2019, home prices have appreciated 16%. 16%. And you can now afford 16% more house essentially just because we have lower interest rates. Is it a coincidence? Now the second thing to consider is we need more inventory for sale. If we get a bunch more inventory on the market, it's gonna really help that supply and demand issue. When the pandemic hit in early 2020, a lot of homeowners did not put their house on the market, or they actually withdrew their house for sale because of so much uncertainty that was in the market, and a lot of people just did not want to take that time, so they just kind of, hey, I'm gonna sit back and relax and wait for this whole thing to blow over, and then we can make a move, especially for a lot of those people that don't have to move immediately, like for a job transfer or something along those lines. But when you combine that with low interest rates, and now more than ever, people are working remotely for their jobs. So we're seeing a ton of people who are now working from home. They needed home office, especially when the kids were at home. I mean, people were losing their mind. They're like, look, if I'm gonna stay at home this much, I need to go find a new place. And all because of, it was like almost a perfect storm, right? And even on top of that, the building process, whether it become the materials or even labor, because people might have gotten sick from COVID, just went down horribly. And getting a building permit right here in Cleveland is nothing short of a nightmare, and the process does take a lot longer. So I know a lot of construction companies are trying to keep up with the demand, but it seems like everything is kind of pushed back a little bit farther than normal. So homes are taking a little bit longer to be built to help with that supply. Now, the third thing to take into account was the eviction and foreclosure moratorium. This was put into place during the pandemic to protect tenants and homeowners from essentially being displaced during the coronavirus pandemic. And the primary concern is once that's all up, which we're kind of coming to an end. I know the tenant moratorium is actually ending October 3rd, 2021. A lot of people fear that a lot of people are going to be behind on their mortgage rates, and a lot of tenants are now going to be evicted, and these landlords are going to be known as a tired landlord, right? They're like, look, I don't want to go through this again. I'm just going to take advantage of the market while it's hot and basically kick them out, because it's almost next to impossible or very hard to sell a property with a tenant that is not currently paying or is behind on their actual rent. And because of all that, a lot of people are concerning that once all this runs out, that this is going to lead to another market crash, because we're going to see a ton of foreclosures and short sales hit the market and basically flood the Cleveland market with a ton of inventory. And I hear this all the time from people who have not bought a house but want to buy a house, and basically they say something like this, like, look man, I'm just gonna wait. We don't want to buy a house. Essentially, we don't want to overpay. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna wait for the market to cool down. We're gonna wait for that crash to be coming, because it is coming, right? We're at the top of the market. I mean, look what happened back in 2009. So once all these foreclosures and short sales hit the market, that's when we're gonna find a good deal, when we're gonna buy, 20, 30% below market value. And here's the thing, right? I get like the speculation on why home prices are gonna crash, because we've gone up, so much in the last couple of years as far as appreciation, and we know that it's not sustainable. But if you think that home prices are gonna crash 20, 30, even up to 40% like they kind of did in the last housing market crash, I think you're gonna be a little bit mistaken. That crash was a result of predatory lending. You had variable interest rates, and you had a lot of mortgage loans that had balloon payments, where after that term was up, say 7 to 10 years, even up to 5, you had to pay back the full balance of the loan. So some people all of a sudden had a mortgage payment that was $130,000. People in America, and even in the Cleveland market, if you bought your house in 2016, 2017, kind of leading up to this whole kind of pandemic era where home prices appreciated so much, you probably have a ton of equity in the property. So seeing a ton of foreclosures and short sales is highly unlikely, just because now more than ever, people have a ton of money. Now, with all that being said, I do believe that interest rates are gonna have the biggest impact on the housing market here, because essentially buyers gonna just afford more house than ever, right? But when that buying power, or when those interest rates drop, so does their buying power, right? They're not gonna be able to afford as much house, so you're gonna see maybe less pre-approved buyers in the marketplace that are not able to essentially bid up these houses, again, 10, 20% over list price. So what can we anticipate moving forward? I'm so glad you asked. Well, in 2021, I anticipate the housing market to still be really, really competitive, to be honest, but I see a little bit of softening in the market. And I'm seeing this because we're actually seeing more homes finally come on the market, so it's helping kind of match the demand that buyers have been bringing to the marketplace. But real estate here in Cleveland and a lot of the markets around the US are very seasonal, meaning that the summer and kind of spring and fall times are by far the best and have the most amount of houses listed, where the winter months you always see a decrease in the number of homes for sale. But we're finally seeing this uptick, which is an absolutely blessing for a lot of these buyers who are in the marketplace. We're not having to compete as much over the same house, just because you might, instead of having one option, now you might have 2 to 3 homes to look at. So houses that are just being listed, I still expect them to get multiple offers within the first 48 hours. But instead of getting like 4, 5, 6 offers, I expect these houses to only get around 1 or 2 competitive offers. Now, moving into spring of 2022, this is where I expect the market to start changing up a little bit, right? A lot of the buyers and even sellers who were kind of on the sidelines waiting for, basically a lot of people didn't want to go into bidding wars or overpay for a property. So I feel like 2022 is going to be a good time for a lot of these people to kind of step in the market, as hopefully buyer demand is going to start to drop just a little bit. And also home sales, I'm hoping we're starting to see a little bit more homes come on the market, whether that was from the eviction or foreclosure moratorium, or just the fact that a lot of these sellers who were just kind of on the fence are finally going to enter the marketplace and put their house on the market. A recent survey showed that 7 out of 14 homeowners are willing to put their home on the market once things begin to settle. And look, I get it, a lot of sellers want to take advantage of this great market. But the issue is when they're gonna go have to find a house, now they're kind of feel like they are overpaying for it. So essentially they feel like it's kind of a situation where, well, sure, I can get more money for my house, but now I'm gonna have to buy a house that's overpriced. So essentially I'm just kind of displacing my equity, is what it kind of feels like. And I get it, man. It's going to be stressful. If you're a seller, you're going to want the highest and best price. And as a same person who's also a buyer's going to want the best deal possible. So if you're on the fence of both, I get it. It's going to be a difficult decision to make. But here's the interesting thing. The feds have announced that they plan on raising the interest rates as soon as late 2022 or as early as 2023. So moving into 2023, if interest rates are on the rise, I do expect a lot of the competition on these homes start to decrease heavily. And in some areas, I expect home values to possibly drop a little bit more. Now, real estate has always been resilient and provided historically great returns on your investment. But again, you're gonna have to make sure that when you buy a house, it's gonna be a little bit longer term investment, just because I don't see home prices appreciating as much as they did. I mean, that's just gonna be the fact of it. There's no way these home prices in the next couple of years are gonna appreciate more than 5 to 10%, although I could be wrong. Again, I don't have a crystal ball for this, but I don't see a market crash, but I do see a correction or maybe even a pullback, because a lot of buyers are not willing to pay what they feel is top dollar for a lot of these houses in the areas. Now, here in Cleveland, the good news is there is a ton of new construction. We have a ton of apartment buildings going up in a lot of areas like Ohio City, Detroit Shoreway, Tremont, all the way over to University Circle. We're seeing a ton of like new construction going up, which is really good. A lot more jobs are starting to finally enter into the market. So it seems like everything is going really, really good in a positive direction. But that's just my 2 cents on the market. Make sure you send me a text, phone call, or email so we can have a one-on-one chat on what you think or I think the market is gonna do, because there's so much speculation. And look, at the end of the day, nobody knows the answer on exactly what's gonna happen. The first step is to see if we can get more homes on the market. The second thing to see is what interest rates will affect the demand here in our local marketplace. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next video.